scholars to say that those people could not even be fired. Now we take a different view with the environment the Supreme Court has given us in recent years, and we're going to use that in a pretty extensive way, Maria, to move quickly.
You're going to have pushback not just from the left. You may have pushback from those very people who are running those departments, running those agencies. They want as many people as they want in there. You're going to want to fire people. Yeah. So how are you going to deal with that? You're also perhaps looking at pushback from Congress. How are you going to deal with Congress? How are you going to deal with having Congress need to change the law?
Well, look, the beauty of this is I think we have a lot of allies in Congress who have their heart in the right place. But what we've learned is over the last 40 years, even conservatives, we've talked a big game for 40 years about cutting the federal government, about reducing the scope of the federal government. Politicians haven't been able to do it. And so Elon and I, we're not politicians. We're businessmen. We're coming at it from the outside. Sometimes if you go inside, you become native to the system. So President Trump, I applaud him for his creativity and his open-mindedness to setting this up for success in a way that hasn't happened before. But I come back to the principle. In the early months, score quick wins through executive action, show what can be done then, and then I think we will lay the groundwork for Congress to have to take meaningful steps in budget reductions for the future. A lot of these discussions we have are theoretical. Right? I have to cut different entitlement programs or whatever. Let's start with the fact that there is massive waste, fraud, and abuse right now. Federal contractors are really exploiting the federal government. You could take haircuts across the board, and they would be no worse off for it. And it's not just about cutting cost, but increasing effectiveness from defense to healthcare. A lot of that is a failure of the administrative state itself, Maria, that rests under the executive branch. And I'm optimistic. It's part of why we've set an end date on this. Our work is done by July 4th, 2026. Unlike every other government project, we don't want this one to last. We want to go in, fix the problem, dissolve, and move on, and set an example for how our federal government should run.
I love that. But again, you are going to face pushback from within.
Sure.
And you are going to have to make this so compelling that you get the support, congressional support. So how do you do that?
Well, look, I think the public is on our side. Most of the public understands their taxpayer dollars are not being well spent. They want to hold these decision makers accountable, and they're not able to. These congressmen are responsive to the people. Many of them are quietly on our side as well. So I think the division of responsibilities, a lot of people who face two-year election cycles in political Congress, they end up looking at what's happening tomorrow. We're looking at the next 250 years. We want to give them credit for doing the right thing. Elon and I aren't in this for the credit, but I think we're going to build the consensus to make the kind of deep cuts that haven't been made for most of our history.
Are you expecting to close down entire agencies, like President Trump has talked about the Department of Education, for example? Are you going to be closing down departments?
We expect mass to be deleted outright. We expect mass reductions in force in areas of the federal government that are bloated. We expect massive cuts among federal contractors and others who are overbilling the federal government. So, yes, we expect all of the above. And I think people will be surprised by, how quickly we're able to move with some of those changes, given the legal backdrop the Supreme Court has given us.
You've got what has been called a deep state. You've got people who have been career bureaucrats in place right now. Didn't President Biden put in plans to ensure that you're not going to be able to fire those people at all? How do you get around that? And, I asked Joni Ernst, are you for term limits? She says, yes, I am for term limits, as long as the people around me are also for term limits. That's not in place right now. So how do you get rid of those people who are dug in?
Well, a lot of what's happened is President Biden has made a lot of changes trying to entrench the administrative state. The Supreme Court has slapped them on the wrist numerous times. So we're working with a legal landscape here that is historic. You think about a president of the United States like Donald Trump, elected with the mandate he's been given, both chambers of Congress belonging to Republicans, a 6-3 conservative majority in the Supreme Court. Maria, if we don't downsize the federal government now, it's never going to happen in the future as well. So this is a historic opportunity. We're not actually going to squander this, but I think part of the key is to move quickly, to move effectively. I think that mass deregulation that I talked about earlier, that gives us the industrial logic to then make cuts to that bureaucracy, and moving quickly is our objective.
Have you thought about moving